Members of the House will please report to the floor and take seats. All members will report to the floor of the House. The clerk will ring the bell. All members will report to the floor. We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good morning. Before we begin our day, most of you, I'm sure, are aware that yesterday Representative Scott Holcomb had a little health issue, and he was admitted to Grady yesterday afternoon. I talked with him or texted with him this morning, and he's resting well. And thanks everyone for their thoughts and prayers, and so keep him in your thoughts and prayers. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the lady from the 43rd House District, Chairman Sharon Cooper. Chairman Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the well and visitors, it's a real special day for me to get to introduce the pastor of the day. He's my pastor. He'll always be my pastor, even though he retired from Northside Methodist Church a couple of years ago. I'm going to start and ask you a question, a little unusual start. How many in the chamber members were here years ago when Governor Sonny Perdue called for a day of prayer for rain? Hold your hand up if you were here. Is that all? We were in a terrible drought, and the crops had failed. We were losing animals across the state, and we were pretty desperate for rain. So out on the front steps of the Capitol, Sonny turned as governor to the Lord, and he asked Representative Gil to come and lead that service. And he's in the middle of praying for rain. And many of the legislators are out there, and it starts to rain. I would like to say we've had enough, Representative Gil. I think maybe this time, since they're saying there's going to be floods all over northeast Georgia, you might need to help us out a little bit with just maybe a slight stop on it. Reverend Gil is now up living out close to outside Rome in a restored house from the 1840s. He was a fifth-generation Atlantean, but now the people in Rome at the First Methodist Church there are really lucky to have him, and he has become their teaching pastor. He's a natural-born storytelling, which made it a true joy to go to services, and perhaps even greater than that was his innate ability to tell what church members needed. You would walk out the door after a sermon, and if you needed a hug, without even asking, you'd get it, or a pat on the back, or sometimes just the statement of, hey, buckle up, you're going to be all right, and just face the situation. And with that, I can tell you he's an extraordinary human being, and I give you my pastor, Dr. Gil Watson.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. Sharon is a wonderful friend and very prejudiced, and I am grateful. You know, this is not my first time to be able to do the invocation in the House, Mr. Speaker, but it is an honor always to be here. In my younger days, I wanted to be here as a representative. And then the Lord said, you know, you might ought to be a preacher. And I said, well, Lord, you can help people preaching, but I want to be in the legislature and make a difference in people. He said, I've got all those people there now, and they're still trying. So you need to be a preacher. I do love this state. I do love the privilege of being in this place. And from the time I was a page here at about 13 years old, it has had a wonderful, special place in my heart. I do love our Georgia, and I am glad that you represent all of us in Georgia, and you represent the very best of what is best for all of us. And sometimes you have to compromise, and sometimes you have to take a deep breath and put on your big girl pants and do what you have to do. Sharon is someone I admire for standing up for the things that she thinks are right, and I have many of you in this House chamber who are my friends, and I'm grateful for that. So as we come to this 15th legislative day in your 40 days, you know it was 40 days of flood. You do remember that, don't you? And I thought I would also respond to the representative by saying, Governor Perdue invited me to pray for rain, not for it to stop. I have no control over the stopping, only the starting. Let us pray. Great God, you have inspired us to be leaders in the state of Georgia. You've wrapped your love around us and shown us where there are needs in people's lives, where there are places where injustice can be made right, and there is leadership that must be leading. I thank you for every member of this House, great God, and our Senate. I thank you for all of our elected officials and our governor. I thank you, great God, that you have bestowed on these representatives an awesome responsibility. And as we stand at the brink of the Lenten season, when we're called on to fast something sometimes, and we always think that's giving something up. And Lord, you know I don't give up things too easily, especially when it involves food. But Lord, I want us today to hear you, and I want us in this Lenten season to fast from hurting words and say kind words. I want us to fast from sadness and be filled with gratitude. I want us to fast from anger and be filled with patience. I want us to fast from pessimism and be filled with hope. I want us to fast from worries and trust in you. I want us to fast from complaints and contemplate simplicity. I want us to fast from pressures and to be prayerful. To fast from bitterness and be filled with hearts full of joy. I want us to fast from selfishness and be compassionate to others. I want us to fast from holding grudges and be reconciled one to the other. I want us to fast from words and be silent and know that you are God. Open our lives and our minds. Use us as you will, great God, and make this 15th legislative day in the Georgia House a meaningful, moving, and magnifying time that all of our representatives will feel that they have worked together to make our Georgia better. For I pray it in the might of your name. Amen. Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. The chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has met and found the journal of the previous legislative day to be correct. Thank you.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159 moves following be establishes the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Report of standing committees. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 946 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Hatch of the 150th, England 116th, Stevens 164th, Jaspers the 11th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 64, Title 33, the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to the regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefit managers.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 947 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Hatch of the 150th, England in the 116th, Newton in the 123rd, Hawkins the 27th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 4, Title 49 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to Medicaid generally.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 948 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd, Cooper the 43rd, Henson the 86th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 8 of Chapter 12 of Title 50 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 949 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Harrell the 106th, Carson the 46th, Williamson in the 115th, and Blackman in the 146th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 48 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to revenue and taxation.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 950 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Bennett of the 94th, Wilson of the 80th, Werkhuis of the 157th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 35-337 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to review of individuals' criminal history.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 951 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, Dreyer of the 59th, Kendrick of the 93rd, McLaurin of the 51st, and Bennett of the 94th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10 of Title 17 and Chapter 8 of Title 42, the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to procedure for sentencing and imposition of punishment.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 952 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Silcox of the 52nd, Hatchett of the 150th, Knight of the 103rd, 30th, and Wilson of the 80th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 4, Title 26, the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to pharmacies.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 953 by Representative Rich of the 97th, Williamson of the 115th, Welch of the 110th, Watson of the 172nd, Jones of the 25th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 50, the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to general authority, duties, and procedures, state purchasing.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 954 by Representative Rich of the 97th, England of the 116th, Campbell of the 171st, Mathiak the 73rd, Bonner of the 72nd, and others. A bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 16, the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to theft.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 955 by Representative Illustration of the 104th, Cooper of the 43rd, Oliver of the 82nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to crimes against the person.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 956 by Representative Belton of the 112th, Newton of the 123rd, Nix of the 69th, Williams of the 168th, and Prince of the 127th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 44, Title 43 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to speech-language pathologists.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 956 by Representative Belton of the 112th, Newton of the 123rd, Nix of the 69th, Williams of the 168th, and Prince of the 127th. A bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 44 of Title 43 of the official code of Georgia, annotated relating to speech-language pathologists.
We just read that one.
Did we?
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 957 by Representative Jones of the 47th, Jaspers of the 11th, Chokus of the 138th, Nix of the 69th, and Sessler of the 35th. Bill being entitled an act to amend Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to education generally.
Education.
House Bill 958 by Representative Setzler of the 35th, Richard of the 97th, Wiedauer of the 119th, and Gaines of the 117th. Bill being entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 49, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to children and youth services.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 959 by Representative Meeks of the 178th, Smith of the 133rd, Washburn of the 141st, Smith of the 70th, Werkheiser of the 157th, and others. Bill being entitled an act to amend Code Section 12.839, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to waste management.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 960 by Representative Hutchinson of the 107th, Marin of the 96th, Wilson of the 80th, Park of the 101st, Wen of the 89th, and others. Bill being entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 11 of Title 16, Chapter 5 of Title 17, Chapter 1 of Title 35, and Chapter 4 of Title 42, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to offenses involving illegal aliens.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 961 by Representative Park of the 101st, McLaren of the 51st, Howland of the 54th, Robichaud of the 48th, and Moore of the 95th, and others. Bill being entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to health.
Insurance.
House Resolution 1166 by Representative Prince of the 127th, Frazier of the 126th, Nelson of the 125th, Newton of the 123rd, and Howard of the 124th. A resolution supporting the creation of a state veterans cemetery in Augusta.
Defense and Veterans Affairs.
House Resolution 1167 by Representative Green of the 151st, Donahue of the 30th, Perkle of the 155th, Werkheiser of the 157th, and Lumsden of the 12th. A resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain state-owned real property.
State Properties.
House Resolution 1168 by Representative Park of the 101st, Williams of the 37th, Couch of the 50th, Moore of the 95th, and Hutchinson of the 107th, and others. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Special Rules.
House Resolution 1169 by Representative Hutchinson of the 107th, Marin of the 96th, Wilson of the 80th, Park of the 101st, Wen of the 89th, and others. A resolution encouraging the replacement of the term illegal alien.
Code Revision.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 916 by Representative Beasley Teague of the 65th, a bill to repeal the imposition of the death penalty in this state. House Bill 917 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Hitchens of the 161st, Scoggins of the 14th, LaHood of the 175th, a bill relating to carrying and possession of firearms. House Bill 918 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Knight of the 130th, Hatchett of the 150th, England of the 116th, Gravley of the 67th, and others, a bill relating to pharmacies. House Bill 919 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, Jaspers of the 11th, Burns of the 159th, England of the 116th, McCall of the 33rd, and others. A bill relating to imposition, rate, computation, and exemptions from state income tax. House Bill 920 by Representative Clark of the 98th, the bill relating to education. House Bill 921 by Representative Bruce of the 61st, Bazemore of the 63rd, Jackson of the 64th, Bodie of the 62nd, Metz of the 55th, and others. A bill to amend an act to incorporate the city of South Fulton and Fulton County. House Bill 922 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th, Ridley of the 6th, and Tarvin of the 2nd. A bill to revise and restate the law relating to Whitfield County Board of Education. House Bill 923 by Representative Corbett of the 174th. A bill to amend an act providing for the compensation of the Board of Education of Clinch County. House Bill 924 by Representative Rogers of the 10th and Irwin of the 28th. A bill to create the Board of Commissioners of Roads and Revenue for Habersham County. House Bill 925 by Representative Rogers of the 10th, Lott of the 122nd, Reeves of the 34th, Laricki of the 169th. A bill relating to sales and use tax. House Bill 926 by Representative Rogers of the 10th, Lott of the 122nd, Laricki of the 169th, Corbett of the 174th, Reeves of the 34th. A bill relating to waste management cost reimbursement fees and surcharges. House Bill 927 by Representative Parsons of the 44th, Cooper of the 43rd, Reeves of the 34th, Dollar of the 45th, Rutledge of the 109th, and others. A bill relating to air quality. House Bill 928 by Representative Dower of the 119th, Williams of the 148th, Richard of the 97th, Barr of the 103rd, Silcox of the 52nd, and others. The bill relating to the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975, House Bill 929 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, Washburn of the 141st, Barr of the 103rd, Smith of the 70th, Dickey of the 140th, and others. The bill relating to general provisions relative to solid waste management. House Bill 930 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Taylor of the 173rd, Watson of the 172nd, Meeks of the 178th, England of the 116th. The bill relating to the Georgia Agribusiness and Rural Jobs Act. House Bill 931 by Representative Bonner of the 72nd, Belton of the 112th, Turner of the 21st, Clark of the 147th, Newton of the 123rd. A bill relating to veterans licenses, honorary licenses, and other distinctive licenses. House Bill 932 by Representative Gaines of the 117th, Cooper of the 43rd, Jones of the 25th, Padow of the 119th, Newton of the 123rd. A bill relating to professional corporations and the Georgia Podiatry Practice Act. House Bill 933 by Representative Nix of the 69th, Smith of the 133rd, Trammell of the 132nd. Bill to amend an act to provide a homestead exemption from Troup County School District ad valorem taxes. House Bill 934 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, Rogers of the 10th, Laricki of the 169th, Lott of the 122nd, Oliver of the 82nd, and others. Bill relating to imposition rate computation exemption from state income taxes. House Bill 935 by Representative Abstration of the 104th, Marin of the 96th, Barr of the 103rd, Park of the 101st, Harold of the 106th, and others. Bill to amend an act creating the Recorder's Court of Gwinnett County. House Bill 936 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Ridley of the 6th, Powell of the 32nd, Belton of the 112th, Perkle of the 155th. A bill relating to motor vehicles and traffic. House Bill 937 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, McCall of the 33rd, Ridley of the 6th, Corbett of the 174th, Powell of the 32nd. A bill relating to buildings and housing. House Bill 938 by Representative Allen of the 40th, Trammell of the 132nd, Dickerson of the 113th, Dreyer of the 59th, and Nolowitz of the 42nd. A bill relating to air quality. House Bill 939 by Representative Carson of the 46th, Knight of the 130th, Stevens of the 164th, Rutledge of the 109th, Ridower of the 119th, and others. A bill relating to imposition rate computation exemptions from state income taxes. House Bill 940 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, Lopez Romero of the 99th, Clark of the 108th, McLeod of the 105th, Carter of the 92nd, and others. A bill relating to elementary and secondary education. House Bill 941 by Representative Estration of the 104th, Hitchens of the 161st, Lumpson of the 12th. A bill relating to kidnapping, false imprisonment, related offenses, general provisions regarding the Attorney General and medical assistance. House Bill 942 by Representative Donohue of the 30th, Hawkins of the 27th, Dubnick of the 29th. A bill to authorize the governing authority of the City of Flowery Branch to levy an excise tax. House Bill 943 by Representative Donohue of the 30th, Hawkins of the 27th, Dubnick of the 29th. A bill to authorize the governing authority of the City of Oakwood to levy an excise tax. House Bill 944 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, a bill to amend an act changing the method of selecting the members of the Board of Education of Miller County. House Bill 945 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, a bill to amend an act creating a Board of Commissioners in and for Miller County. House Resolution 1092 by Representative Green of the 151st, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. Chris Shannon, dedicating a road in his memory. House Resolution 1093 by Representative Parsons of the 44th, Werkheiser of the 157th, Hitchens of the 161st, Nix of the 69th, Dickey of the 140th, resolution creating a joint study committee on cybersecurity. House Resolution 1094 by Representative Green of the 151st, Perkle of the 155th, Donohue of the 30th, Werkheiser of the 157th, Lumsden of the 12th, resolution authorizing the granting of non-exclusive easements. House Resolution 1095 by Representative Green of the 151st, Taylor of the 173rd, Earhart of the 36th, resolution urging the Georgia Department of Education, Department of Public Health to encourage all schools to participate in a school-located influenza vaccination program. House Resolution 1160 by Representative Buckner of the 137th, Bentley of the 139th, Jackson of the 128th, Pullen of the 131st, Moore of the 1st, and others. Resolution creating the House Study Committee on motor carrier inspections. House Resolution 1161 by Representative Dower of the 119th and Gaines of the 117th, resolution honoring the life of Mr. James Oscar Hardigree Jr., dedicating a road in his memory. House Resolution 1162 by Representative Allen of the 40th and Indolowitz of the 42nd, resolution urging the following commercial public facilities have at least one gender-neutral adult changing station with an adult changing table and appropriate signage. House Resolution 1163 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Scoggins of the 14th, Kelly of the 16th, resolution recognizing Georgia Supreme Court Justice Robert Benham and dedicating a bridge in his honor. House Resolution 1164 by Representative McCall of the 33rd, Watson of the 172nd, Dickey of the 140th, Perkle of the 155th, Corbett of the 174th, resolution encouraging the Georgia Department of Public Safety to be attentive to the needs of livestock and transport. House Resolution 1165 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Scoggins of the 14th, Kelly of the 16th, a resolution honoring the life of Sergeant Stanley Thomas Bradley and dedicating an intersection in his memory. Senate Bill 295 by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th, Gooch of the 51st, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Mullis of the 53rd, Cowsert of the 46th, and others. A bill relating to courts and revenue and taxation. 3 second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Eddie Lumsden of the 12th District, Chairman of the Committee on Insurance, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Insurance has had consideration following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 583 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 842 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 893 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Eddie Lumsden of the 12th District, Chairman. Representative Lynn Smith of the 70th District, Chairman of the Committee on Natural Resources and Environment, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Natural Resources and Environment has had under consideration the following bills of the House. This instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 993 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Lynn Smith of the 70th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports and standing committees.
We're going on now to morning orders. Going on to morning orders. We have a number of members that have signed up. We carried some over from yesterday, and it's the intention of the chair to start with those, but all members will be limited to 1 minute each on morning orders. Chair recognizes Representative Hutchinson for a morning order.
Thanks. Good morning, colleagues. Today I'd like to introduce you to Finnegan, 13-year-old Finnegan. Going to college and raising his own good family one day are just two of Finnegan's big goals. A smaller and more immediate goal is to possibly play soccer for his school's team. Finnegan, who goes by Finn, enjoys spending time watching soccer games, riding his bike, and watching comedies and cartoons. Say hello to Finnegan, 13 years old, one of the many children available today for adoption in Georgia. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a morning order. Chair recognizes Representative Dreyer for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representatives Gamble and Irwin are going to join me, but today we're recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Georgia Association of Educators. They're having a lunch this afternoon. They have a great mission, of course, to help those that nurture our children. And I think we can all agree that we don't often recognize teachers enough. We don't often give our respect to teachers enough. But they are incredibly important. They take care of our babies. They give people opportunities to succeed in life in our society, and we want to thank our educators and particularly thank GAE for 50 years of advocating for teachers. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Newton for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, many of you are under age 45, so you need to listen, or either you have family or friends who are under age 45. Trauma is the leading cause of death in that age group from 45 down. I'm excited today is Trauma Day, where we celebrate and appreciate those who are involved in the care of trauma across the state of Georgia. There are 15 level 1 and level 2 trauma centers that are that are working together as a network through the Georgia Commission on Trauma to make sure that we lower that number in Georgia, that we bring the best care possible to all our constituents, our family members, and each other. So if you can join with me, my friends from Augusta University, the Level 1 Trauma Center where I trained and where I live over in Augusta are here with us. Many are here in the gallery. If you can just thank your trauma centers and thank them for me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravley for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your leadership. And I want to thank this body for the courage that all of you displayed last year on passing historic legislation so that patients in this state who need medical cannabis oil will be able to get safe, lab-tested oil right here in our state. Colleagues, as of date, we are now the envy of southern states. Alabama, having passed a model version of House Bill 324 yesterday through their Senate committee 8-1. Tennessee, South Carolina, and Kentucky having expressed interest in copying the bill that we put forward. Why? Because we put patients first, and we did it the right way. I want to thank the governor for having the courage to sign this legislation. And I want to update you, the commission has been formed. They have had 2 commission meetings, and they are on their 3rd one upcoming. I just wanted to thank you all for your courage, and Mr. Speaker, thank you for your leadership. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just hoping that all of you have had a chance to look at the package that was left by the dental hygienist on your desk a few days ago and that you found something that was useful. We have 7,000 dental hygienists in the state, and they are working not just in your dentist's office, but in schools and in free clinics, trying to get basic dental care of cleanings and screenings and, the hygiene and things for our poorest of poor children in this state. They have just been in Cobb County at a level 1 school, the North Park Elementary School. This is their 2nd year there, where they went in and did cleanings and preventive medicine and preventive dentistry for these children, and they deserve our credit. So I hope next time you see a dental hygienist, you will thank them for the work they're doing across our state with our most needy children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Dickerson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My moment in Black history. Fannie Lou Hamer was an African-American civil rights activist who led voting drives and co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. In December of 1962, Hamer made a life-changing decision to attend a local meeting held by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who encouraged African Americans to register to vote. In 1964, Hamer founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, established opposition in her states to the all-white delegation of that year's Democratic Convention. Along with her focus on voter registration, Hamer set up organizations to increase business opportunities for minorities and to provide child care for other family services. She helped establish the National Women's Political Caucus in 1971. Diagnosed with breast cancer in 1976, Hamer continued her fight for civil rights. She died in March 1977. She's buried, and one of her famous quotes was, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm to be joined by the members of the Fayette delegation. We've got a special group of young ladies in the gallery that we would like to recognize today. Up in the gallery, we've got the McIntosh High School cheerleading team, who is also the 2019 5A state champions. So, ladies, if you'd stand to be recognized and help welcome them to the People's House. Here.
Chair recognizes Representatives Momtahan, Gullett, and Gravley for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I would like to recognize a leader from our community as a former commissioner, Reilly Strickland, who is here with his beautiful wife, Betty. Served from 1985 to 1989 on the Paulding County Board of Commissioners. His granddaughter, Bella, is here today paging for Vice Chairman Gravley. Can we all give a warm welcome to the commissioner and his gorgeous wife this morning?
Thank you, Reilly.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dollar for a morning order.
Thank you. Today we have the Georgia High School Fencing Association here today. And are they in the gallery? I was told that they were here. Okay, please stand if you're here. Right back here, please welcome them. We have fencers from all over the state. And later today down the rotunda, they will be doing demonstrations. So if you've never seen it, please come and learn about this ancient and great sport. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett and Representative Sainz for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we welcome the Camden County delegation who's traveled the 340 miles necessary to come to our great capital. They're right over here in the corner. If we'd welcome them over to our capital. From a ballistic missile submarine base to a top-performing Title I school system and to wild Roman horses on Cumberland Island National Seashore, me and Chairman Corbett are truly privileged to represent a unique part of this great state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Schofield for a morning order.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, and to my House family, today is Lupus Advocacy Day. Lupus is an autoimmune disease that impacts 60,000 Georgians. Many in the House have shared their personal stories with me, so I thank you all to the legislators that are superheroes today for those living with lupus, but the real superheroes are those people living with, impacted by, and caregivers of people with lupus. Join me in recognizing those who braved the rain and the pain today that are here in the gallery. Yes, we're done. Fly on back, fly away, superheroes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Awesome.
How many of you enjoyed the apple pies in the anteroom this morning? Well, the group that brought them, I want to recognize in the gallery, and that's Leadership Gilmer County and members of the Board of Directors of the Gilmer Chamber. If y'all would stand and let us recognize you, please. Their job is to keep the road open for me to get home this weekend. Chair recognizes Representative Howard for a morning order.
Yeah.
Take your license.
Just don't give me no ticket. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome to this Capitol, to the People's House, a group from Augusta, Georgia, Mr. Morris Porter and the NAN National Action Network Group. If they would stand, let's welcome to the Capitol a group of young folk. Thank y'all for being here.
Chair recognizes Representative Shannon for a morning order.
Good morning. Healthy women have better pregnancy outcomes. And because of this, it is a reason that you hear a lot of us continue to talk about expanding Medicaid and expanding health care coverage. You take, for example, a condition like high blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of those conditions where by the time you start to see symptoms, it's probably that you're having a real issue like a heart attack or a stroke. And so you look at a condition like that, and that is a condition that you could be walking around with unbeknownst to you. It is really difficult to take care of conditions like this when you now are carrying for two. And so this is one of the reasons why folks who care about maternal mortality, which tracks women dying due to complications in childbirth and up to a year after giving birth, care about expanding access to health care. You will not be getting the checks that you need to determine the health of your body before becoming pregnant if you don't have access to health care. So please consider and support expanding Medicaid for new moms, as well as expanding Medicaid for the state. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Susan Holmes for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Danny Mathis is going to join me here, and we are very pleased this morning to recognize a great group from Jones County. The Jones County Leadership Group, I believe, is over here. Would y'all stand and let us thank you for being here? Here you go. Thank you. Haley Watson does a great job with this group. Oh, and we're okay over here too. Great. Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gamble for a morning order. Representative Gamble on the floor. Morning order. He waves. Chair recognizes Chairman Mark Newton to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, colleagues. I'm pleased to introduce to you a gentleman I've grown to know over the past several years, Dr. Rasean Hodge. He trained at Morehouse College, a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, got his medical degree from Robert Wood Johnson. Then he came home again and trained in family medicine at the Morehouse School of Medicine for his residency in family medicine. He's got a passion for making the human condition better by relieving suffering. That's exemplified by his leadership in several Georgia hospice programs, a time of life. Many of us have family members who've been in hospice, or we know people we care about who've been in hospice, how important that can be to have somebody who specializes in that after thousands of hours of training making a difference in their lives. And he's currently also on the board of directors of the Sickle Cell Foundation, medical director of Premier Chronic Pain Center. Does love spending time with his son and pursuing his goal of one day becoming an international missionary. But we're glad he's here with us today, and please help me welcome Dr. Rasean Hodge.
Thank you for that great introduction. Thank you for the love. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, it is my absolute pleasure to stand before you. I do make the cannabis recommendations for this state. I see a lot of purple, so that's lupus. That's one of the chronic conditions that's near and dear to my heart, and it's because of your empathy. A lot of my lupus patients are not getting on dialysis at 24, 25, 26 years of age. That's because of y'all. So I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart taking care of the lupus population, patients, and caregivers. Anyone that needs me downstairs, I'm there. My approach is very holistic. It's not just about a shoulder, a scapular, a rotator cuff pain. I want to hear about your sleep, your interest, maybe any guilty feelings, your concentration. Let's talk about your mood. Health is mind, body, and soul, and that's just my focus, and I thank y'all. All right. Get in here. Get in here. I'm hands-on.
House will continue to be in order. The clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1042.
House Resolution 1042 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd, Cooper of the 43rd, Laricki of the 169th, Hatchett of the 150th, Holland of the 54th, and others. A resolution honoring the life and memory of James Harold Shepard, Jr., co-founder and chairman of the Board of Directors of the Shepard Center, and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Chairman Silcox for an invite resolution.
Good morning. I am delighted this morning to bring to you a resolution in honor of James Harold Shepard, Jr. This morning we are joined by a lot of the Shepard family, if you'd allow me to introduce them. First we have Jamie Shepard, we have Alana Shepard, we have her great-granddaughter Annie Shepard, Julie Shepard, and Sarah Shepard, and I'm just delighted to have them. Unfortunately, James, Alana, and Harold Shepard's son passed away on December 21st of this past year. Honestly, James received countless, of course, numbers of national and statewide awards. He was chair of the board of directors of the Shepard Center. But much more than anything else to me, James was truly a friend to all that he met, and he was one of the most selfless and exemplary people that I've ever met. He was always about others and never about himself. He was truly a giver and a model for so many. He is and will be truly missed. Now I'd like to present Jamie Shepard to share a few more words about James.
Thank you, Representative Silcox. I appreciate it, and thank you to the distinguished members of the House today for coming here to honor my father and for all you do every day on behalf of all Georgians. When my father broke his neck body surfing in Brazil in 1973, he barely made it back to Atlanta, and there was no specialized rehabilitation care in the Southeast, so he had to go to Denver, Colorado for his rehab. He ended up walking out with a leg brace and a crutch. We were a family full of road builders who was naive enough to think that we could start a hospital. Despite ourselves, probably in many cases, we did that. 2 years later, in 1975, we started out as a 6-bed facility. Today, we're a 152 licensed bed facility. We treat brain injuries and spinal cord injuries and multiple sclerosis. We're nationally ranked. We treat Georgians, people from the Southeast, from across the nation, and also the world. While my father's death is a big loss for the family and also the Shepherd Center, I wanted to let y'all know we have many family members on the leadership and executive team, and we plan on carrying on his legacy and carrying on the mission of the Shepherd Center, helping Georgians and Americans and international injuries alike. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what y'all mean to the state.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1007.
House Resolution 1007 by Representative Rich of the 97th Bar of the 103rd, Gaines of the 117th, Weed Hour of the 119th, Martin of the 49th, and others. A resolution recognizing the Lunar New Year celebration and for other purposes.
The chair recognizes Representative Bonnie Rich to introduce some special guests.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem, ladies and gentlemen of the House. It is my honor today to have with me friends and citizens of District 97, Jacqueline Sang and her husband, Louis Sang, Mr. Lee, and Mr. Wu. We are here today to recognize the celebration of the Lunar New Year, which began January the 25th. This is the year of the rat. The Lunar New Year is celebrated by Asian and Pacific Islander communities around the world, including here in Georgia. It's a time to renew family ties and to start the new year with a clean slate. Georgia's Asian community has been an integral part and contributor to Georgia's successes in culture, academics, our civic success, and our economic success. I would like at this time to introduce Ms. Jacqueline Sang, who is a first-generation refugee from Cambodia. She came here as a young girl with her mother and young sibling, and she is now a naturalized U.S. citizen and has made her home with her husband, Louis Sang, who is a first-generation Chinese American. They reside in Duluth with their 12-year-old son, and they are very active members of our community, both culturally and civically. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Jacqueline Sang, who will say a few words.
Thank you so much, Representative Bonnie Rich. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the honor of being here today to receive the House resolution in recognition of the Lunar New Year celebration. The Lunar New Year is a holiday that is widely celebrated by multiple countries in Asia. And lucky for us here in Georgia, we are fortunate to be able to share this celebration amongst our friends and family from countries such as Taiwan, China, Vietnam, and Korea. We are so thankful to be able to live here in the greatest nation in the world and call this place a home where we can celebrate and embrace diverse and ethnic, diverse culture and ethnic background and still be an American. Thank you again so much for having us here, and thank you so much for all you do here under the Gold Dome. Thank you so much, especially to our representative, Bonnie Rich, for sponsoring this resolution. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Clerk will read the caption to H.R. 1111. H.R. 1111.
House Resolution 1111 by Representative Schofield of the 60th, Jackson the 64th, Bodie the 62nd, Rich the 97th, and Carter the 92nd. A resolution recognizing February 20th, 2020 as Lupus Advocacy Day at the State Capitol and for other purposes.
The Chair asks for the House's attention to Representative Kim Schofield to introduce a special event and our guests.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. So today I have the honor of recognizing a couple of special guests that have joined us today. Ms. Claire Henry, she lives in Rockdale. She's a former law enforcement officer and now runs a small business and a nonprofit. She is here just to give you a little bit of her story and talk about this Lupus Advocacy Day today.
Thank you, Representative Schofield. Good morning. My son Jordan succumbed to complications from lupus in 2014 at age 19. He was a former cadet sergeant at Riverside Military Academy and a graduate of Rockdale County High School. Lupus is a confusing disease even to the medical community. It's called the great imitator because it imitates other illnesses, and while doctors are ruling out those illnesses, it continues to wreak havoc on one's body until the doctor realizes that we're dealing with lupus. We need more research and training. My son was only 19 years old, an athlete. Jordan's case confounded doctors and nurses alike. Some who didn't believe that males got lupus, didn't believe that young people got lupus. Some think it's hereditary. But having learned of at least 3 other young people locally who've died due to its complications, we need a cure. Thank you.
And so for many of you that don't know, this is my 20th year of living with lupus, so thank you for your prayers and your support.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1178. 1178.
House Resolution 1178 by Representative Jackson, the 64th, Bodie the 62nd, Kendrick the 93rd, Smiley the 135th, and Dukes the 154th. A resolution recognizing February 20th, 2020 as Alpha Phi Alpha Day at the state capitol and for other purposes.
The chair is proud to introduce Representative Derek Jackson to introduce some special guests.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Indeed, it is an honor and a privilege to recognize Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the oldest and the coldest fraternity. 113 years we've been bringing forth manly deeds and scholarship for all mankind, and we are presenting a proclamation on behalf of this body to the Georgia District of Brother Sherman Lofton.
Good morning. To Speaker Ralston, members of the distinguished Georgia State House of Representatives, Representative Brother Derek Jackson, and guests, I greet you on behalf of our 35th General President, Dr. Everett B. Ward, our 27th Southern Region Vice President, Kelsey Rushing, Assistant Georgia District Director, Brother to Jordan Carter, our past district directors, and more than 2,500 members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated that call Georgia home. Today, the members of the nation's oldest collegiate African-American Greek letter organization have come to these hallowed grounds, nestled under this symbolic gold dome, galvanized by the theme, heeding the call, armoring ourselves to advocate and fight against injustice in all communities. On this day, we gather here to advocate for full and equitable funding of our schools, prioritizing the education of our children, increasing the minimum wage, requesting that discriminatory policing practices along with racial profiling are made unlawful, ensuring that the right to vote is protected, unencumbered, and unrestricted. On this day, the men of Alpha and our mentees come in support of health care for all citizens, sensible gun control, decrease the funding and reliance of the private prison complexes. There are distinct parallels for the mission of this legislature and the mission of Alpha Phi Alpha. At our core, we each have a deep commitment to the communities that we serve. At our core, each of us are charged with helping to enlighten and uplift those lesser than, knowing that by doing so, it helps all of us and makes it better for the greater good. These works should be done without being biased by ideology, without bowing to private interest, but by honoring our oaths and our obligations to the citizens that we serve. We believe we can create a brighter future for Georgia by taking steps to improve the atmosphere in our schools, by teaching entrepreneurship and wealth creation, and developing policies and practices to support the same, and by carrying out our mission, which develops leaders, promotes brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy for our communities. As I close, I am reminded of a quote: "You can't be lucky all the time, but you can be smart every day." May God bless you all, the state of Georgia, the United States of America, and may He keep each of you in His arms, because now is the time to do what is right.
Madam Pro Tem, we also have some alphas. If the alphas can stand in the gallery and be recognized by this august body, and the mentees.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 981.
House Resolution 981 by Representative Smith of the 70th, Chokers of the 138th, Williamson of the 115th, Belton of the 112th, and Bentley of the 139th, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending the Chattahoochee Marion Forestry Unit on being named the Georgia Forestry Commission 2019 North Georgia Unit of the Year, the Baker Mitchell Forestry Unit on being named the 2019 South Georgia Unit of the Year, Area 4 on being named the 2019 Forest Protection Area of the Year, and Region 2 on being named the 2019 Forest Management Region of the Year. and for other purposes.
The House will give their attention to Representative Vance Smith, who will introduce some very special guests.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. If I could start out like this, I'm actually filling in for Representative Lynn Smith, Chairperson, Chair Lady Lynn Smith. If y'all would think about Lynn and her family, her husband has turned ill and she had to leave unexpectedly. So just keep Chairman Smith and her husband in your prayers. It's an honor for me to do this. We have some of the most elite of the Forestry Commission people here with us today. We're honored to have them for the jobs that they do across our state and in protecting our natural resources and certainly protecting the citizens of Georgia. At this time, I'd like to ask their esteemed leader, who used to serve in this House from 2011 to 2017 as a state representative and a good friend. I'd like to ask him to come up, my friend Chuck Williams.
Representative Smith, thank you very much. Madam Pro Tem, it's an honor and a pleasure to be back in this esteemed chamber. And as we have done for the last several years, we're proud to be here recognizing our best of the best, the men and women who help manage and protect the 24 million acres of forest land in Georgia. As you've heard me say before, if it's raining in Georgia, and as we heard the pastor today, it is 2 out of every 3 raindrops that fall in Georgia fall on forest land. So from an environmental standpoint, from an economic standpoint, there are a lot of reasons that our forests are very, very, very important to us. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Again, the men and women you see before us, and we had a group over in the Senate earlier today, are both from the Management Division, which helps landowners manage. They're from the Protection Division that help protect forests, primarily from wildfire, but other things. I just want to take a moment for the support that really goes back prior to my time serving in this chamber, much less my time serving with the Forestry Commission, for the support that this body, the body across the hall and the governor's office have given us. I know 10 or 15 years ago, in particular, Chair Lady Penny Houston recognized that we had men and women that were fighting wildfires on bulldozers with open cabs, and she took it as a personal initiative to start upgrading our fleet of fire suppression dozers, and now over half of our fleet of dozers have environmental cabs. You heard Chairman England yesterday from the well as he was presenting the budget talk about Hurricane Michael. And obviously, forestry was severely impacted by Hurricane Michael. You stepped up in the special session with significant funding. And folks, if you're not from Southwest Georgia, I will tell you that the recovery is not finished in Southwest Georgia. There are still blue tarps on roofs. There are still vast tracts of timber that have not been touched. And for the support that you have given us to continue to do that work, we're thankful. Somebody asked me in the hallway just this week, when are y'all going to be finished in Southwest Georgia where Hurricane Michael is or was? My response was, when our phones quit ringing. And our phones have not quit ringing yet from landowners that need our support. Just last year, we let you know that we were running a great training program, but with our pay scales where they were, we needed help. And you, the governor, the Senate responded with some pay parity help that has really, really moved the needle for us on attracting and retaining quality men and women to do the work of the commission. Madam Pro Tem, if I can, as I wrap up, a personal point. When I walked out of those doors after the 2017 session, I had no idea that I would not be walking back in them 9 months later. Had no idea that this opportunity to work for the people of the state of Georgia with the Forestry Commission would come about. And I would submit to you that none of us ever know when we walk out that door when we might be walking back in or not. The voters may call us back home. Our families may call us back home. Your business may call you back home, or as we were reminded with Chairman Jay Powell, the good Lord may call us back home. So I just wanted to share with you, someone that sat where you have sat, never take for granted when you walk in those doors. I know we get busy, the noise level gets high. I would just suggest that we all, when we have an opportunity to walk through those doors, Madam Pro Tem, that we just take a moment and realize what an opportunity and a privilege it is to serve in this body and never take it for granted. And with that, again, we're very appreciative for your support, your ongoing support, and we look forward to serving your constituents in any way we can. Thank you.
House will be at ease for a few moments.
We're going on now to the rules calendar. Going on to the rules calendar, the clerk will read the caption to House Bill 777.
House Bill 777 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Burns the 159th, McCall the 33rd, and others. Be titled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 80 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to standards and requirements for construction, alteration of buildings and other structures. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman John Corbett to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I'll bring before you today House Bill 777. But before we get to the bill, let's talk about what the forestry industry means to Georgia. We're the #1 forestry state in the nation. Georgia's second largest industry is forestry. Over $36 billion in economic impact. Over $977 million in state taxes. Over 148,000 direct and indirect jobs. And then there's $37 billion worth of ecological impact to Georgia. So in the immortal words of Chad Nimmer, if you like clean water and clean air, thank our forestry people. Thank you, forest growers. So let's talk about what we're doing with the bill. Basically, we're just asking DCA to speed up their review process as it comes to the mass timber part of the International Building Code. And setting a timeline for them to do that. We're just asking them to speed that process up, and after reviewing it and with the approval of the Codes Revision Board to decide whether to adopt it or not. And that's basically what we're doing with this bill. I'd appreciate everybody's favorable consideration, and Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for any questions.
You do not appear to have any questions.
Well, thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 777. The ayes are 162, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 786.
House Bill 786 by Representative Welch, the 110th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1562 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating the number of judges of superior courts. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Welch to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I present to you a request that we fund a 4th judgeship in the Flint Circuit. The Judicial Council has recommended and does this on a periodic basis where they do a caseload assessment, and in doing so they have determined that there are 3 circuits, the top 3 circuits, Cobb, Ogeechee, and Flint, are in need of a 4th or additional judgeship. They've recommended that too. We have appropriated money in our, we have it in the budget. The governor's budget has a recommendation of appropriation of money for each of those circuits. I understand that bills have been filed for Cobb and Henry, which is the Flint Circuit. We'll see if that also is filed for Ogeechee. In the bill, you'll note that we have postponed the start date till January 1st of 2021, so that afford us some budgetary money going forward in the big budget. I want to say thank you to Representative Douglas, Holly, Scott, Rutledge, Knight, and Mathiak for co-sponsoring this legislation, and ask for your favorable consideration of this bill. I'll take any questions.
You do not have any, well, you do have a question. Do you yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes Representative Holly to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Is it not true that Henry County is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation?
It is true.
And is it not true as well that for the 5.5 years I served as a criminal warrant officer with state's largest county, that cases can get a backlog if we don't get a proper person there to sit in the judicial seat?
Well, I believe you know what you speak, but I would also say that making sure that we have that 4th judgeship is instrumental in moving the criminal justice system along in the Flint Circuit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 786. The ayes are 160. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House Bill 292 was on yesterday's rules calendar and was postponed until the next legislative day. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 292.
House Bill 292 by Representative Benton of the 31st, to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 21 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating the general provisions for the Regents' retirement plan. This bill having referred to the Committee on Retirement, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Retirement Committee, Chairman Benton, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House.
Bring to you today House Bill 292. This bill would amend the general provisions under the Regents Retirement Plan relating to remittances by the University System of Georgia. Currently, the University System of Georgia is required to remit the following payment to the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia, an amount equal to the accrued liability contributions that would have been made on behalf of participating employees if they had been members of the Teacher Retirement System, and two, an amount, if any, equal to the increase in the normal contribution rate. This legislation will repeal those requirements. Therefore, if this legislation is enacted, the University System of Georgia would no longer be required to remit such payments to the Teacher Retirement System of Georgia. According to the actuary for the Teacher Retirement System of Georgia, this legislation would not result in any additional cost to the system. And based on the recommendation from the system's actuary in 1999, the University System of Georgia has not been making such payments to TRS on behalf of members of the optional retirement plan. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 292. The ayes are 159, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 716.
House Bill 716 by Representative Blackmore, the 146th, Blackman of the 146th, and others, being entitled an act to amend Code Section 33-24-59.23, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to carrier issuing health benefit plan to pay insured agents commissions. This bill having referred to the Committee on Insurance, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee, Chairman Blackman, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. This is some quick adjustments to what was passed a couple of years ago regarding commissions that are filed with the insurance commissioner. This would require carriers to file those commissions, including if they're going to use 0%, and those commissions would be paid as filed. It's really intended to provide some added clarity, transparency, and consistency to the existing language. Secondly, we have a part that qualifies and clarifies language regarding special enrollments. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are.
You do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 716 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 716. The ayes are 155, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1023.
House Resolution 1023 by Representative Welch, the 110th, proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that the people of this state may petition the judiciary for declaratory relief. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary. The committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Andy Welch to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I come before you to ask for your favorable consideration of a proposed constitutional amendment to allow the voters of this state to decide whether or not they can petition their courts for relief when government acts against state law or the state constitution or the federal constitution. In recent Supreme Court decisions, the court has read our Constitution to invoke what is called sovereign immunity, whereby individuals cannot sue for declaratory relief or injunctive relief in the courts of the state when someone, a governmental official, a governmental agency, branch, or entity violates your constitutional or statutory rights. It is in our Constitution, and therefore it makes sense to amend the Constitution so that people can come to the courthouse and seek that redress. Last year, I stood before you and asked that you pass House Bill 311. That was a waiver of sovereign immunity for those purposes. And you did. You voted twice. And you voted overwhelmingly in support of that waiver. This body and the Senate did likewise. Unanimously, in fact. And 3 years before that, both chambers adopted a similar bill that was sponsored by Wendell Willard, Jay Powell, B.J. Pack. No legal lightweights in this chamber. And that was passed and adopted, and it was vetoed. And 311 was vetoed. So I bring before you this constitutional amendment to ask that you put it before the voters of this state. Now let me tell you what the bill does not do, or what the House resolution does not do. It is a limited waiver to allow for people to petition in court and use the third branch of government to redress governmental wrongs, constitutional violations, breaches of statutory law. It expressly does not allow for injunctive relief, so you can't stop someone. You can file suit to have a judge tell the government that they are breaking the law. It does not authorize the payment of damages or attorney's fees or cost of litigation. It has one purpose: to protect our constitutional and statutory rights. You remember last year I stood before you and I said, look, here's the key to my office in the Capitol. The Supreme Court has said each and every one of you, 180 members of this House, the 56 members of the Senate, you have the power to open up the courthouse so that people can go in and sue if they think government is violating their rights. We spent over $100 million to build an edifice to the Supreme Court of Georgia and the Court of Appeals. But we didn't give anybody the key. I'm asking you to give them the key. Lady Justice has a sword, a scale, and a blindfold. If you can't get into court, she didn't have any of those things. She can see the wrongdoing. She can't weigh it out because she doesn't have a scale and she doesn't have a sword. I'm asking you to put it in the people's hands with a vote on this measure. Put that blindfold back on. Put the scales of justice back in her hands. Put that sword back in her left hand, and let her do her job, and let the third branch of government be a check on the other two branches. I ask for your favorable consideration for this measure, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Do you yield for a question?
I do.
Chair recognizes Representative Dukes to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
I do.
In your presentation, is it not true that you said that a person who had been grieved could not get relief for attorney fees if they decided to sue the...
That's correct. That's correct. The measure does allow the General Assembly to adopt a law after this constitutional amendment is made, and you could adopt a law that you would authorize attorney's fees or damages in specific situations. But this measure does not allow for that to occur until we have passed an enabling legislation later.
Could that be a part of this legislation? Because my concern is that how would a person who could not afford to hire an attorney get relief when the courts have wronged them?
It's a good question. Our courts are open to anyone bringing a suit for that purpose, and you would not need to be an attorney to bring that action. So the other aspect of it is we don't want to also authorize frivolous actions. These should be meaningful actions brought for violations of those constitutional and state statutory rights.
Is it not true that the defendant who represents himself has a fool for a lawyer?
I would hope not, but even though it's my profession, and even though that there's financial gain for me to do those, to represent clients, I would submit to you that our courts, in hearing a petition for violations of constitutional law and statutory law, will listen. And they will listen to those petitioners even if they do not have a lawyer. And I think the men and women of our judiciary are fair-minded and can meter out justice accordingly, even though there may not be a lawyer representing that individual. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt and allow them to hear those cases, because right now, they cannot.
Do you further yield?
Yes, I do.
Chair recognizes Representative Rogers to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I do.
Is it not true in regards to the gentleman's questions, which are well-founded, I guess, but the actuality of this is it boils down to one simple thing. All we're doing is putting it in the hands of the people of the state of Georgia to make a simple decision.
That is all we're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the will.
You do have one more it's up to you though.
I'll take the question.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams to your left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
My question, would this, if you have members that are appointed to a state regulatory board, does this now make them liable? Could they be held liable for not enforcing the law that they are sworn to uphold?
It's a good question, and the answer is no. State law already, if there's a statutory mandate that they have to do something, we already have a cause of action called mandamus for that purpose. And in fact, this legislation addresses the concern that we have whereby in section lines 18 through 27, we expressly require that the lawsuit be brought against the board and not the individuals named, which provides protection for those people who engage in public service and want to serve the state and make decisions, that they themselves will not be subject to these kinds of suits. And so they would not be subject to it. The board as a whole may be subject to the suit, but not the individuals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the will.
You had another question, but do you still yield? Gentleman has yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of House Resolution 1023. The ayes are 163. The nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Mr. Clerk, I'm going to ask you, if you would, to read Rule 135, House Rule 135.
No member or person shall vote for another member on any question or proposition unless otherwise ordered by the Speaker. Any violation of this rule may be punished by fine, censure, or other action ordered by the House.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Clarence Mutt Lee Rhodes, Jr. Recognizing February 21st, 2020 as Georgia Election Officials and Registrars Day at the state capitol. Commending Call to Care. Congratulating, commending Marigold Edwards for receiving the 2020 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Servant Leader Award on March 10th, 2020. Recognizing, commending Cook County Schools and the Baby Hornets program. Congratulating Titletown Titans football team for winning the 2019 14U National Championship. Commending Officer Daniel Sperano. Recognizing April 2020 as Genocide Prevention and Awareness Month at the state capitol, honoring the life and memory of Brenda Faye Asbury. Recognizing March 2nd, 2020 as Peanut Butter and Jelly Day at the state capitol, and commending the Georgia peanut industry. Commending Thomaston Upson Community Heart and Soul, and recognizing March 2nd, 2020 as Thomaston Upson Community Heart and Soul Day at the state capitol. Recognizing February 22nd, 2020 as African American Gun Association Second Amendment Day at the state capitol. Recognizing, commending Reverend Calvin Peterson and Disabled in Action, Inc. Commending the Atlanta Business League. Commending Delta Sigma Theta Sorority for its 107 years of service, and recognizing March 2nd, 2020 as Delta Day at the state capitol. Commending Georgia's Community Service Boards, and recognizing March 12, 2020 as Georgia Association of Community Service Boards Day at the state capitol. Congratulating the Gatewood Clay Target Shooting Team for winning the 2019 GISA State Clay Target Shooting Championship. Recognizing, commending the success of Tif-Tuff Bermuda grass and the work of Dr. Wayne Hanna, Dr. Brian Schwartz in the University of Georgia, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Okay, we're going to go on to announcements here momentarily. If you have signed up for an announcement, make your way to the front of the chamber. Chair recognizes Chairman Hatchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please listen. The Majority Caucus will meet upon adjournment in room 403. Majority Caucus will meet today in room 403 upon adjournment. Lunch is provided.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Juvenile Justice Committee will be meeting today at 1:30. We have slightly delayed the start of the committee meeting in light of the Majority Caucus meeting, so we will meet today at 1:30 in room 406. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Buckner for an announcement.
Please join us for the Working Families Caucus. Lunch will be served. It is in room 307 of the Coverdale Legislative Office Building. We've got a great program planned. Our own House Appropriations Chair Terry England will be talking about the big budget to our caucus and explaining how that might affect working families. We'll also have Senator Hill talking to the senators that are members of the caucus. So come join us if you will, 307.
Chair recognizes the Chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Smith, for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker, as long as another Chairman Smith doesn't show up, we'll be okay. Rules will meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Rules Committee.
Chair recognizes Chairman Gerald Green for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join us today for the Trauma Awareness Day Luncheon and Injury Prevention Showcase. It'll be down at the Georgia Freight Depot in the Blue Room, the Trauma Awareness Day Luncheon. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams for an announcement. Sorry, wrong Williams. Got y'all confused. I got y'all confused. Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just glad the other Mr. Williams didn't show up. The Regulated Industries Subcommittee of Alcohol and Tobacco meeting will be postponed. It will have to be rescheduled. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind everybody the Energy Subcommittee of Utilities and Telecommunications will meet at 2 o'clock in 403. We'll have a hearing on House Resolution 1037 by Representative Chuck F. Strachan. I know he would appreciate your attendance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Newton for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Health and Human Services Committee, we will have a meeting today at 1 o'clock in 506 CLOB. In addition, the Committee on Access to Quality Health Care meeting that was going to follow that has been postponed to Monday. So we'll see you at 1 o'clock.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Harrell, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the full Ways and Means Committee will meet this afternoon at 3:15 in 606 CLOB. Just prior to that meeting, the Income Tax Subcommittee will meet at 3 p.m. in 606 CLOB. If you have bills that you believe are coming out of full committee this afternoon, don't forget to prepare Chairman Smith's Rules Committee forms, and I'll sign those for you upon passage.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Motor Vehicles Committee will meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, room 515 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Chokas for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Loosen up, guys. The Academic Support Subcommittee on House Education will be meeting at 1 p.m. today in room 606. And the full Committee on the House Education will be meeting at 1:30, also in room 606. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That completes the announcements. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 9:30 a.m. February the 21st, 2020.
Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until Friday, February 21 at 9:30 a.m. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes seem to have it. This House will be adjourned until Friday at 9:30 a.m.